So the work's titled Their Little Black Slaves Perished in Isolation, and it's a work that responds to, again, another one of these oral histories that I've been hearing for some time, and it's documented in written text also, that we draw on as a family unit. But the work draws on the story where it was the practice of the Department of Native Affairs and the Woorabinda Mission superintendent and the church missionaries there at Woorabinda Mission in central Queensland to indenture young children, 12 and 13-year-olds and upwards, young children, boys and girls, out into indentured servitude as girls in domestic servitude and cooking and domestic work, and the boys into stock work and work on the railways. And the particular story in the mid-1930s tells of a young Gumbi, a young Aboriginal woman, a young girl who lost her life in very tragic and quite brutal circumstances, which came as a direct result of the practices of the mission system at Woorabinda. The young dear was contracted out, and she was around mid-teens, and she was contracted out to work on a cattle property just outside of Clermont in central Queensland. So she'd been sent away on her own to this property. And the practice there at this particular station, as was fairly common practice across the state, was to lock the young girls in their dorm rooms at night, or in their room in the Queenslander house at night. The key would be placed in the door and locked for the dual purposes of attempting to stop the young girls from freeing themselves from this position of slavery and running home or running off to family nearby. And also the other effect was to, in some ways, safeguard the young girls from the sexual advances and the predatory nature of some of the inhabitants of the cattle properties and the other itinerant workers that would be on the stations. So in this particular story, which we also have another couple of examples in our family's oral history, this young deer knocked over her kerosene lamp and tragically was incinerated in her bedroom. By the time the people on the property were able to unlock the door and find the key and unlock the door, the poor deer had sustained such horrific burns that she passed away from that. In attempting to address this history, I've constructed a room. I tried to think about the typical central Queensland timber Queenslander made from pine VJ, and I tried to think about, or tried to ignore in many ways, the other inhabitants and the other history associated with that house. And I thought about that young deer's bedroom and the corridor that led to her bedroom, and I thought about constructing something that pulled the rest of the house away from there, and again sort of isolating that bedroom and isolating that history in that part of the house, in the structure. So I've constructed a VJ timber space out of recycled 80 to 100-year-old boards. And I think about the space in terms of a diptych, in a way, that there's the corridor, which is the entry point and the exit point from the space. But then as you enter the space, your senses are shifted and turned from how they were applied in the corridor. The light drops away in the space. The light drops away heavily, and in some aspects of the room, the walls recede as well. And then as your eyes adjust and you search for content in the room, hopefully a smell of recently burnt timber and recent fire comes over.